So when we contemplate on the nature of utmost reality, when any of us contemplate on the essence of utmost reality, what happens? It's not object contemplates on the subject. That's impossible. This is intact. It's still subject contemplates on object. This is the value, the subtle value on the contemplation of God, contemplation of the highest reality. Why? Because the subject always remains subject. So when subject contemplates on its own essence, and that means this impulse is given. See? This, which is exemplified here, a process of descent, manifestation, is now reversed. Because object cannot contemplate subject. Subject recognizes an object. We spoke about it earlier, that in truth, all these are categories in awareness, categories in consciousness. So when we have any experience, like, let's say, holding this flower, I do not recognize this flower because this flower exists out there, and somehow, by virtue of discrimination, I know that this is flower because I have seen flowers before, and so and so and so and so. But on the account that there is no absolutely difference whatsoever between the subject and object. Why? Because subject is an object. This flower is an expression of my own consciousness. That's the only way I can recognize this flower. If that was not the case, there will be no possibility for recognizing this flower. None. It's illumined by the same light that in the first place projects outward, springs forth from the essence of my own being and becomes every form and phenomena. So therefore, the act of recognition is not of an object at all. It's always an act of self-recognition. This is the value of the knowledge. So whatever we recognize on the account of self-recognition, not on the account of object recognition. And the way it becomes possible, the way this takes its form, the way it actually gains this uniquely, in a way, instrumented and so tangibly believable that I am experiencing something independently from myself, is because of these intermediate powers, including that what is exemplified in the tradition as the Maya Shakti, the power of concealment. The power of concealment without which you can't have your cake and eat it too. If awareness did not undergo this phase of manifestation, then it will forever remain unaware of itself. So this is the grandeur of understanding of the monistic system. How light bends on to itself to contemplate its own magnificence, its own luminosity, its own brilliance. And in the process, everything, what we call the world, is nothing other than the light of awareness. Everything is light of awareness. You want to call it a byproduct of that contemplation of Shiva onto its essence? Fantastic. Why not? Just as artists who set to do something in the process of creative outbreak comes up with masterpiece. The intention was to express herself, himself fully. Just to express whatever may come. And in the process, steps back. Wow. Wow. That looks quite cool. That looks quite amazing. This is how the great works of art are created and serve as a reminder of what taking place. So now, please, let's not rush. Please take this attentively because this is very important. This, so far, spoken in pictorial terms with an assistance of, let's say, this conceptual framework of understanding, may come across or may appear as the ultimate picture, the grand picture, the mega perspective. Because after all, awareness, it's totality, and the outmost expression of that totality is the entire manifestation. But this is what taking place absolutely at every experience. Just as that experience of recognizing flower or this cup with water, being in the presence of this extra light as well as the daylight, every sensory input, whenever there is an act of cognition, all this takes place. So there is this understanding of the phases of experience. All this is expounding further on where we have started, on these basic tenets of Kashmir Shaivism, known as Trika Shaivism, as that Trinity. As that Trinity which, remember now, like, I hope you were able to keep up with all this, what each and every of its points represent here. So, at a more clinical, dry level, it's subject, object, means of knowledge. At more kind of, let's say, categories with that giving due to tradition, Shiva, Shakti, Nara, eternal principle of pure subjectivity, eternal principle of manifestation and withdrawal, an eternal principle of objectivity, because that's where subject recognizes itself. So it's got to be eternal as well. All these additional, right, aspects that we kept adding, remember? Will, knowledge, action. All these additional aspects, I trust you had the chance to map out in your, is intact in the process, what we call experience, because this is the constituency of experience. And this constituency of experience requires particular forms of energy, powers, operating powers. So therefore, the Tantra of Trika Shaivism speaks of these main phases or main aspects here, main operating powers, exemplified on the other side with the drawing, right, where that, let's say, Vameshwari, will of Vameshwari, and manifest, with all these waves radiating outward, all the way to Bhukari, that earthly plane of existence. Now, they can be grouped into three, which will give us this picture of, spoken in terms of volition, cognition, and action. In the fivefold nature of Absolute, awareness and bliss are inseparable. It's just a natural progression of self-actualization, of awareness on the way to manifestation, and then will, knowledge, and action, or volition, cognition, and action are expressions of respective energies or respective Shaktis. See? Where the mentioned yesterday system of tattvas, pure categories, right? Remember we spoke about pure categories? Then we spoke about the sphere of cognition and the sphere of objective experience. So this would be that very important phase, the phase of cognition, the operating power of Shaktis. This is the psychic realm, the realm of psychic tattvas. This is where all the templates laid out. So when the pure category is there is no yet manifestation, only impulses. Everything is in potentiality. It can be anything. It's a molten gold of pure possibilities. In fact, it's just barely energy and the source are in barely recognizable from each other state. But then the impulse takes over. From the point of volition, will kicks in. And everything is then has to follow a certain projection. And that comes very important stage, the stage, phase, which is governed by the cognitive power. So the power here, that Shakti of cognition. All the cognitive powers are making what we speak of as psychic realm or psychic tattvas. This is where all the inner senses are in a state of the creation of what will then become the manifested reality, equipped with a perfect instrumentality, what we refer to as the body. The body would be equipped with all the organs of cognition, which are for the sake of the expression of the senses. The inner senses belong to that realm. This is where the inner senses are formed. All these inner senses are formed here. And then, once all these templates laid out, the possibility for action can take place. And action indeed takes place. And then the world, as it were, gains the body. Many bodies, multiple forms, multiple bodies. So the human body here is this utmost expression of all this. And every time we experience something, there is this dynamic in motion. This dynamic of impulse, exemplified by the impulse of pure subjectivity going towards an object of experience. It's touching the outer periphery, in other words, experiencing it. Its light, which is luminosity of its own self, in a particular form, refracts back onto itself. And at that moment, experience is completed. You see? Experience is completed. So it goes out, bounces off, and comes back here, and I recognize myself. See? So in other words, all this is in motion, in action, anytime. Even as I speak these words, as you hear the sound, and whatever that fraction of unit of time takes to cognitive powers of your intellect to understand these words, the same is intact. Just as with an example of a flower. That flower here is the content of this exposition. It is being cognized. And soon as it is being cognized, it falls back onto itself. See? It falls back onto itself. So this is the macro and micro replica of all. So in other words, every experience mimics or reflects the grand picture. Every time we experience something, no matter how casual or grandiose, how extraordinary, that is intact. So it's interesting that, just to kind of like take the edge off, what is it? Who come close to the movie making? Any of you? No, don't forget. Lights, camera, action. Lights, camera, action. That's how movies are made. Lights, you don't put the lights on. They're very expensive bulbs and everything. They consume tremendous amount. It has to be everything. So, okay, everyone prepared. Every roles, like, you know what you're doing. Yeah, okay, good, okay. A-listers here, yeah, like stars, We have like all-star cast here, Everyone ready? Okay, and then lights, camera, action. Here we go. So the cinema itself is a kind of like an expression of that model. Light of awareness, all these cognitive powers is the camera. All this is that camera, You can't have an all-star cast and a lousy camera, or cameraman, or camerawoman. You have to have like a really, really like state-of-art equipment. I'm dying to see Oppenheimer. It was shot on the extraordinary Amex equipment, Amex cameras used. Action. It's a sacred word. When the director said, shout it out, action, all shuffling stops. It's a movie, expensive business. So why is the creation of the universe suddenly a cheap affair? Right? Okay, films made on a budget, some of them are, and we have all the budgets to our disposal, right? We have the best camera, best cameraman, speak and span, okay? All-star cast, granted. Every star queuing to be in this movie. Queuing, dying, doesn't matter. Brad Pitt queuing there, just like appearing humble because he might be replaced for another big star. Action, holy word, holy cow. Reflect on this. Contemplate on this. Movie, an extraordinary event. You go into the cinema, lights off, you sit down, something on a screen. It's not taking place and yet it's taking place. What's at work? How do you know it's a good movie? There's only one criteria: when you are lost the awareness of the outside world. Forgive me if I'm like speaking the obvious now. A good movie means you are completely lost in what you are watching. Is it not? Well, if you're watching a movie and aware of people sitting there, it's annoying when someone's shuffling and this, but once it takes you in fully. And the better the acting, everything, the more you forget your essence. Okay, essence. You forget yourself in that, hour and a half or 2 or 3 hours. You completely feel justified for that time. See? Again, contemplate on that example. So this act of self-forgetfulness, that what could be seen either as mere entertainment or an extraordinary movie that changes your life, it's beside the point now, you see? They all talk about now Barbenheimer. The Oppenheimer released at the very same time as a Barbie. Totally different ball game, totally different movie. And memes are all over the place. Just check it out. Not during the retreat, but anyway. Barbenheimer it's called. T-shirt you can buy. Half the face is this Cillian, Murphy as an Oppenheimer, and half the face is Margot Robbie as a Barbie. Right? The Barbie, the famous Barbie. It is a real stuff. Barbies, we have a Barbie in the house. No attempts at trying to bring children in a different way, right? Succeeds because the Barbies get into your house. Sometimes I take this Barbie and think, can I just chuck it into the recycling bin? But then, of course, the pangs of you shouldn't do that, really, okay? Be tolerant, okay? Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Put that Barbie back into the, So, this is worthy of contemplation, worthy of understanding. We will continue from here. But the importance of contemplation, because contemplation at that level brings about all this. And contemplation, seemingly at that level, we know it's not possible, it's always that level. Always that level. See? But just in reverse. So awareness, in other words, we will complete this with these large phases of evolution and involution, so as to position fully the understanding of the role and play consciousness here acts and interacts as the Shri Kundalini, so that we can understand what's going on at each and everyone's individual level in relation to the cosmic or universal plane of existence. Because individual is universal. It's the modes of contemplation. Individual and universal are but modes of contemplation. Therefore, at some point it felt fitting to say that in a state of ignorance we contemplate incomprehensible nature of Absolute. And in a state of enlightenment, we contemplate incomprehensible nature of manifestation of the world. One way or another, whichever take you prefer. Take your pick.